husky, I'm husky, fighting leaf and husky, I'm husky, fighting leaf and husky, yeah, that's me!
Sure, they like a now, but that ain't gonna last. To minimize the damage, we gotta work fast. This is what we gotta do to help the kids to get it. Now listen to my review, you're gonna regret it. It's husky by my side and a leaf on my chest. Real bad kids movies with help from the rest. I'm fighting leaf, the kid movie cheat. To give me no grief, but you're gonna regret it.
Hi, Internet!
And welcome back to Kid Movie Ninja, You're Gonna Regret It. Yep, 2 bad movies in a row this time, with your hosts, Fighting Leaf and Husky the Wolf. So, what do you do when you want to capitalize on a movie that a lot of people, well, have been talking about for a while, but it's PG-13 and thus outside of your usual wheelhouse?
Specifically when that movie is a Disney remake that people have already talked about so much at this point. What do?
You talk about the crummy sequel that they made to the original many years ago. That way you can still get the keyword Mulan and, have something to actually talk about in a video.
Yay! Oh, crap.
That's right, I'm afraid that means we actually have to watch the thing now. So, without further ado, because our camera doesn't have a lot of memory space and retakes are annoying, it's time for us to delve into Mulan 2. The movie starts with a very brief overview of Fa Mulan having done something cool in the last movie.
Only they're not talking about honoring Mulan here.
No, because this movie likes fake-outs.
They're talking about someone else.
Who's that someone?
Mushu.
That's right, the little red lizard from the originally voiced by Eddie Murphy.
Unfortunately, Eddie Murphy is one of the few people not to reprise his role in this movie.
What do you mean, unfortunately?
Good point. This time he's voiced by Mark Mosley. We'll live. We pay a visit to the Fa family household and hear that General Shang is coming over to formally propose to Mulan.
General? I thought he was a captain.
Well, he was in the first movie, but since saving all of China, he, moved up in the world.
Yeah! That's when a Minnie Mouse cosplayer shows up at the house and asks her where Mulan is. Where is she?
Doing her chores.
I totally believe that. How about you, Husky?
Oh yeah, totally believe it. After all, it's not like she's out there practicing her kung fu moves!
And of course, having had a taste of everything that makes men awesome in the first movie, she's out there practicing kung fu moves. Because why wouldn't she be?
And of course, it wouldn't be a Disney movie without corrupting China's youth.
I guess all that extremely institutionalized, female repression in China just sort of went out the window after Mulan showed one time that one woman could do one thing right.
Even though that one thing was save China.
Okay, you got a point.
But yeah, now all the little girls in the village want to grow up to learn to be just as butch as she is.
And in order to make their corruption complete, she sings them a song, lesson number 1. It's very middle of the road, but even so, it's the best piece in the entire movie. The songs in this movie are not nearly on the same caliber as the original, because Disney, at this point at least, didn't put any effort into its sequels.
Calling this one the best out of the bunch is basically saying, yeah, it sucked the least out of all of them.
Even so, it does a very solid job of elucidating the basic themes of the film, which is the balance between yin and yang, opposites coalescing into something stronger than either extreme is by itself. Honestly, this piece does start to grow on you after a while. The call-in responses and the echoing effects are actually quite lovely.
And the principles that it espouses of balancing between hard and soft and light and dark and all that stuff, that's actually pretty useful. We use it ourselves in our ninja training all the time.
Obviously, you know that I can hit very hard, but also the point of the fighting leaf is to be uncatchable, like a leaf drifting in the wind.
But yeah, this scene shows us all the voices that Mulan gets in this movie.
speaking voice belonging to Ming-Na Wen from the original movie, and her singing voice this time going to Leah Salonga.
Yeah, we're still doing the best we can with these names. But unlike in the first movie, the next character to arrive, General Shang, doesn't get any songs this time, so he's just voiced by B.D. Wong. Again reprising his role from the original.
I hate that we have to be able to use those as bragging points as if they were somehow meritorious. And, not just doing the bare minimum.
So, of course, General Shang don't waste no time and gets right to the proposal.
Except he's surrounded by little children.
Is there someplace private we can talk?
We can go to my house.
No! Bad! Bad, stupid child! That is inappropriate!
You're the one here making it weird, Husky.
This scene. Okay. So Mulan, of course, tells Mushu that, she just got proposed to, and he's all emotional, blah, 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 and we hate it.
Why do we hate it?
Because take a listen to this bit.
You're my most trusted friend.
Oh, that did it.
That right there is the first sign of a real misstep in this film. Everything up to now has been pretty harmless, if just kind of dull.
But the direction they decided to take Mushu in this movie, that's the first real bit of tedium.
Yes, in the first film he had a bit of a selfish streak in him, but nothing compared to what you're gonna see here.
So they finish their chat and he goes off to plan her wedding, somehow, in spite of being something they have to keep secret. Okay. So it all looks fine and dandy when Mushu goes to announce to the spirits of their ancestors that Mulan is getting married, they look happy, and blah 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 pig slip.
That's right. As it turns out, if Mulan gets married, then her husband's guardians take over duty of protecting her.
And that means Mushu is no longer her guardian.
You know what that means.
It means that our once pretty heroic, if somewhat incompetent, lovable red lizard dragon thing from the first flick is gonna be our villain.
Way to endear us to a character, Disney. The ancestors were never portrayed in the best light in the first movie, but here, they're just so much more bitter and angry than they ever were.
And you know what? From Mushu's behavior, I don't blame him at all.
Hear me, you lazy lounge lizard.
Yeah, lazy lounge lizard pretty much hits the nail on the head.
We get a small foretaste of the clashing personalities these two seem to have when a messenger from the Emperor arrives to summon them back to the capital.
We can assume that China needs rescuing again, but before they do, the in-laws got a little present for them.
These are yin and yang stones, representing the duality of man. It's less hackneyed than I make it sound. It's actually deeply rooted in all of Asian. Stop looking at me like that. The point is, like the opening song indicated, these two are going to need to learn to harmonize their disparate qualities in order to make something better.
But that ain't gonna be easy when you got a little red demon trying to break up your happy engagement.
Seriously, this part wouldn't be nearly so hard to sit through if he was actually some kind of legitimate demon who hated the Fa family and was trying to sabotage them.
Would have been a lot better if Mushu was secretly trying to hide this demon from him. Imagine if Mushu had, like, a friend who was his opposite, like a blue lizard or something. And he wanted to bring him along on this mission, right? And so he goes along, but Blue Guy hates Mulan for reasons, sure, whatever. And then he becomes the villain of the story. Mushu would then try to hide the fact from Mulan because, well, he's his friend. He's trying to be good to both Mulan and to Blue Lizard.
This would create yet another opportunity to bring in elements of yin and yang. This red lizard of loyalty and this blue lizard of discord. They'd then be able to reach this villainous lizard and win him over to the side of good, thus creating a redemption arc for a character who really needed it.
Yeah, Mushu doesn't really need it. He can just be the kind of good but incompetent friend that he was in the first film. He already had a satisfying arc and everything.
Yeah, but we should probably get to actually letting the movie speak for itself for a bit.
Fish. Look at them. Those two clearly got it going on. Cricky, I've made a decision. I gotta kiss my pedestal goodbye, cause my girl's happiness comes first.
He even acknowledges this!
Oh yeah, sure, she seems happy. That's the real tragedy here. The girl don't even realize how miserable she is.
Ah! Then he goes back on it 2 seconds later. Ah!
We really just wanted an excuse to incorporate that again. It's been a while. Once Shang and Mulan make their way to the capital, they meet with the Emperor, who is once again voiced by Pat Morita.
We don't actually have a joke for that. We just really like Pat Morita. Yeah, apparently the Huns are coming back to annihilate China again. But instead of sending his army to get their butts kicked, the Emperor has a different idea.
He wants to form an alliance with Qigong, one that is so powerful that even the Huns would think twice before trying to attack them. Far as we've been able to tell, Qigong doesn't actually exist.
Never has.
And just how are they going to forge this alliance?
With an arranged marriage!
Your Majesty, an arranged marriage?
Oh boy, here we go. Look, we understand that arranged marriages have been very heavily abused throughout history. But it's not as simple as arranged marriage is always bad and always will be.
If you hold that opinion and want to make a movie that, expresses that, then sure, that's perfectly legit.
This movie, however, makes some very key mistakes in expressing that particular opinion. But just so everyone's clear, we actually don't care for arranged marriages over marriages for romance. We are pretty much more in favor of getting to choose your own mate.
But we also realize that it's not always possible or practical.
The first thing this movie does very wrongly in trying to make its argument is setting the stakes so high.
If this wedding does not take place in 3 days, the alliance will crumble and the Mongols will destroy us.
Wedding's gotta take place in 3 days, or else, quote, the Mongols will destroy us. I.e., everybody gon' die.
That means it's gonna put countless lives in danger if you put a single obstacle in the way of this wedding. That means whatever happiness you put for whoever's gonna get married is going to be weighed against the lives of every citizen in China. If the stakes were lower, then you'd have more of an argument to make here. But this is not what's going on.
Here it's just a matter of, I don't really think we should do that, so let's not. But no, this movie doesn't even give an alternative to this idea. Obviously, when you're protecting the Emperor's daughters, you need a troop of well-trained, disciplined, and highly elite
Comic relief.
Huh?
That's right, we get a return of these three bozos from the original movie.
Harvey Fierstein once again voices Yao, the gorilla with the bad eye.
Geri Watanabe voices the, hilarious Ling.
And Jerry Tondo voices the insatiable Chen Po.
And we are unironically looking forward to their performance in this movie.
Yeah, everything else is sucked in this movie, but surprisingly, they don't. Even their reprise of A Girl Worth Fighting For is mostly harmless fun, you know?
Sure, it's kind of pandering, but we'll take whatever victory we can get here. In the original film, all they really wanted was to get through the war in more or less one piece, and to save China, of course. Here, though, they want to enjoy their peacetime with a little something they didn't have before.
A girl worth fighting for!
Yeah, that. And look at that, there just so happen to be 3 princesses that they're escorting to this Gong... I already forget what the name of the place was.
With the kingdom of Qigong.
Yeah, that.
Their only problem is that all 3 of them are repulsive human beings and no one wants to be with them. Except...
As you can clearly tell, Royalty apparently doesn't give you any taste in men.
The initial introduction of the princesses is kind of interesting. We have May, voiced by Lucy Liu,
Sue, voiced by Lauren Tom,
and Ting Ting, voiced by Sandra Oh. When they're first introduced, they're deliberately hiding their personalities to make them look more royal and stuff.
which is exactly the kind of thing that you would expect from the Daughters of the Emperor. Always prim and proper. It's not a bad way to introduce them, but it's the payoff that we're gonna hate when we get to it. And of course, they are clearly unhappy about the arrangement, no matter what they say in their dialogue.
And even Pat Morita knows that clearly what he's doing is super evil, but for the greater good.
I know this is a kids' movie and you're gonna have to simplify some things for younger audiences, but if you can't handle certain things with a certain kind of depth, then you really shouldn't be featuring them in kids' movies at all.
Yeah, just enough time to stop Mulan from making the biggest mistake of her life.
And there's Mushu reminding us that he's the villain this time.
As if this movie wasn't bland enough, we gotta make it cringy.
But I have another duty. To my heart.
Here we go.
Look, Disney's gotten better about this sort of thing than in the past, but every time they wanted to make some kind of big, deep emotional point, they always keep using the word heart like it was some kind of, I don't know, like it was some kind of catch-all term for basically we were too lazy to think of anything more compelling.
Oh, you must always listen to the heart, be true to the heart, blah, blah, blah. My heart is stopping right now. Look, the idea of listening to yourself and knowing what you want in life is not a bad message, but this hackneyed tripe was hackneyed tripe even back then. Even Shang acknowledges that this is a necessary evil. The world isn't perfect, and so sometimes people have to make sacrifices. Which is actually a legitimate counter-argument to make here.
But the movie never argues against this, it just says, bad.
Alright, in its defense, it does sort of give a kind of argument showing a happier alternative, but it never addresses, you know, the stakes.
During the trip, we see that Yao has fallen head over heels in love with the princess.
Which is completely understandable. Any guy who sees an actual beautiful princess up close like that is very likely to form instant infatuation. That, I can't argue with anyone.
But boy, it wouldn't make any sense at all if the princess fell for him right back, right?
Did you see the way he looked at me?
Unless this is the first male she has ever exposed her foot to outside of her own dad, I really don't see how this would have nearly this kind of effect. Yes, princesses are sheltered, but I'm sure even she can tell a one-eyed gorilla from
The big, cuddly panda bear.
Oh, honey, you deserve each other, don't you?
But once again, they got a duty, lives on the line and all that.
Along the trip, they stop to water the horses, and, you know, in spite of the terrible not argument it makes for its point, we actually really like this bit. The chemistry between the three guards and the three princesses is actually kinda sweet. It still doesn't make any sense that they would see anything in these three, but their interactions are genuinely charming.
Except for Ling and Ting Ting, because Ling is actually, you know, not funny.
I am Princess Ting Ting.
Well, if you ever need me, just give me a ting-a-ling.
Honestly, the first time I sat through this movie, I seriously thought Ting Ting was cringing as hard as I was. But no, she's stifling laughter.
You'll know why soon.
You are very easy to talk to, Yao.
Permit me to echo your praise, Your Highness. I find your presence engaging and your conversation sparkling.
Thank you.
Actually, wait a second.
What's wrong?
I think this image is missing something. Hang on, hold it steady. That's it. And there. Perfect!
Then May has a short conversation with Mulan, where we learn
I guess I learned that my duty is to my heart.
That's a terrible lesson for little kids.
What we actually mean by that isn't that little kids shouldn't know what they want. The fact is, they're gonna hear this lesson differently from a mature adult. A mature adult is going to hear things like self-love and knowing yourself and self-awareness and doing the right thing, following your conscience.
Little kids are gonna hear this lesson and think, I want something, therefore I should have it.
Which is extremely counterproductive. And May treats it like some kind of grand revelation. Alright, Cabbage, how much did we lose? Great. Alright, we'll continue the review, but you keep monitoring those cameras. Great, he's still here.
Saboteur?
Yeah. We're just gonna have to deal with it when the time comes, but for now we have a video that we need to finish.
Just some audio quality we lost. Here's a little snippet of what we had.
Then we have a montage of Mushu being a terrible, horrible friend. It's really not until Mushu sends their carriage and supplies careening off a cliff that anything is really accomplished.
Sure, we get an exciting moment for a bit, but then it's back to Mushu being a crap friend and a horrible friend and a terrible friend and a big pile.
May wants to run away from her duties because she's in love with Yao, and the other girls actually have similar sentiments. And the song that they sing expresses, well, a very strong misunderstanding of what being a woman in ancient China was probably like. It simply takes for granted that being a common girl who could do whatever she wanted was automatically better, even though the kind of freedom they're pining for doesn't actually exist. Something that was well established in the first movie. And now that we're back online, we can get to the part of the movie that basically cemented this movie as something that fans of the original probably despise.
Well, at the very least, we despise it.
This is where Mushu's horrible shenanigans actually start accomplishing something.
Up to now, they've been basically harmless, but now, it ain't funny anymore.
So he sneaks into Xiao's tent,
sends him little sleep messages designed to make him hate Mulan,
and then sets up this. That's right, he set up a bunch of dummies to pull an Iago on Shang. He's making it sound like Mulan is saying terrible things about him behind his back. The result being...
really unattractive animation?
Well, yes, but also a really petty lover's quarrel. You know, the best part of any romantic comedy. Mushu's plan is coming together,
and Mulan is seriously starting to doubt her engagement with Shang.
Luckily for us, we're gonna be focusing on the princesses and the guards again very soon.
Hooray!
So these three knuckleheads have hatched a scheme to get the princesses down into town with them for the night. I seriously need to choose my words better.
What he means is that they're trying to talk the girls into going into town with them, so that they can guard them while having the time of their lives. Do I need to choose my words better now?
I honestly don't have the social skills to tell you for sure. In any case, the princesses agree to this, but of course complications arise.
Mushu catches them on their way out and warns Mulan of them.
What exactly he hopes to accomplish with this is unclear, but the consequences are. Mulan specifically tells Mushu not to wake Shang.
So, I'll give you 3 guesses what he does. What's a good friend?
And even though this is building up to a very undesirable conflict between Mulan and Shang, the scene itself where the guys and girls are all in town is actually probably among the very best in the movie.
Chimpo and Sue get to bond over their unnatural love of food, and Yao gets to clobber somebody. Always a good time.
And even though I don't much care for this bit with Ling and Ting Ting, it's still somewhat charming in spite of myself.
Huh?
They really do overblow her laugh, though.
Yeah, significantly. If they didn't draw her mouth so dadgum big like they seem to like doing in this sequel, then it probably would have been a lot more, not ugly.
I just really want to bring more attention to this scene because it's really what the movie should have been about from the beginning.
Yeah, make these 3 the central focus, even more so than they are. It's clearly the best part of the movie.
All the other parts that have distracted from this plot have not been to the movie's benefit.
Heck, don't even have it be about them being princesses. Have them be normal village girls and then have these three bozos begging Mulan to help them be attractive.
The message of this movie could have then revolved around knowing the best parts of yourselves and capitalizing on them. Don't pretend to be anything you're not, but also work on any areas that you could improve on,
while showing off the best sides of yourself.
This scene could have then been used to show off just how great these guys really are in their hearts of hearts, while setting up a challenge that they have to overcome. One last obstacle in the way of their true love.
But it ain't. It's about Mushu being a terrible friend, even though that's not who he was in the original movie, and anyone who liked him in the original movie is gonna feel like garbage at this one. I want to shoot another laser beam!
I know, Husky. I know. So, of course, Mulan is happy for everyone because they're conforming to her worldview.
Shang, on the other hand, is not, because he's trying to save China, and everyone else is making it very difficult.
We're gonna skip talking about this scene because you guys know how it goes. Everyone's yelling at each other, there's a bunch of misunderstandings that no one explains because talking to each other is just out of the question.
Yeah, there's really no point. And after that, everybody's miserable. Miserable, miserable. The typical kid movie sad part that's brought about for stupid and petty reasons.
There are good ways to handle this,
and there are stupid ways to handle this.
Even Mushu is feeling remorse for the wedge he's been driving between Shang and Mulan.
So much remorse, in fact, that the moment he gets reminded of how much she trusts him, he falls apart like the Great Wall did during the Hun invasion.
The wall didn't actually break in the first movie, Husky.
Okay, you know what I mean, it's just a metaphor.
Of course, Mulan is angry at Mushu for this betrayal, but she then realizes that there's hope for her relationship yet. However, a sudden bandit attack, one that was properly foreshadowed a long time ago, so that's actually the movie being competent, interrupts them.
We get a whole bunch of cool kung fu moves, a bunch of yeah, are those the Huns from the first movie?
They sure look like them. They're never called Huns here, though. They're just bandits. Though, yeah, they're the Huns. And while they do manage to drive away the bandits, we suffer a casualty.
Did they kill off Shang?
No, they didn't. So they've reached their very lowest point, and Mulan declares that the princesses should go off with the guards.
What about the Alliance?
Oh, don't worry. Mulan's actually got that covered this time. Mulan, thinking that Shang is dead, decides to go through with the marriage herself.
There are problems with that.
Yes, there are. Hey, would you look at that? Shang isn't dead after all. And hey, would you look at that? It's time to wrap up. Mulan goes to see the ruler of wherever the heck they are, promises to marry Prince Jiki, who is, cute, Disney. The others meet up with the totally not dead Shang. Of course, Mushu's entire life is falling apart, so he has to do something about it. Shang interrupts the wedding, says that's actually my girl, not yours. War nearly breaks out immediately over this, and Mushu does something right for once by impersonating the Golden Dragon of Unity, not actually a thing,
or a dragon,
and using his not real authority to play matchmaker with the main characters. So where does that leave the Alliance? Don't know, don't care.
The end!
Yeah, this movie's not very good. To call this a watered-down version from the original is nothing new. It's what Disney sequels have always been doing. But it wouldn't be nearly so bad if they didn't take Mushu's character and drag him through the mud, turning him into a very petty, selfish villain character. Yes, Mushu's motivation had always been selfish, even in the original film. But he got over that and decided to fight for Mulan instead of just his own glory. And the fact that they acknowledge this in the sequel only makes his betrayal worse. While having treachery as an element among friends can work, this is not the way to handle it.
This is clearly not what fans wanted for the character, and it did not help this movie's reception at all.
And while we do agree that choice marriages are overall better than arranged ones, this movie does not make a good case for it. It just treats it as an assumption without really resolving its own plot over it.
Oh, sure, it thinks it has, but, well, what the heck happened with the Alliance? The whole point of the adventure we started!
All in all, it's a movie that doesn't think through its themes or its plot very well. And I have better things to think about at the moment, like catching an intruder.
Oh, all right. Everything seems to be in working order. Now time for this week's Patreon shout. This goes out to Bashful Ivory, Joyful Cryptid, Megan Cloud, Sonic Destroyer 12, and Shammy. Thank you so very much for your ongoing support. If you would like to support us as well, then just click on the Patreon link in the description below. I don't believe this video featured any of his music this time, but go ahead and check out Steve Sharp's YouTube channel. Again, link in the description. And if there's one thing we love, it's fan mail. Go ahead and send anything you would like to send in a mailbox to P.O. Box 82, Prospect, Kentucky 40059. Have a wonderful day, Internet!